Good morning, each and everyone. We are going to start shortly this program. Please wait kindly. Hello. Good morning, each and everyone. Myself, Sovin Rafe, final year BSW, Katila Shoppa Memorial Institute. I heartily welcome you all for today's program, and I know that you're all really excited for this today's international webinar, Nanasudhi lecture series. Before we go into this, a few instructions that need to be followed. Please mute your device so not to interrupt during the section, and also make sure not to click on icon presenting as it interrupts the presentation, and any inquiries which you have will, will be answered at the end of the section in Q&A discussion. And please kind waitly for the program to start. Thank you. Today we are organizing another new webinar on Jnanasudhi lecture series, A New Beginning, organized by Manasa Trust, Katil Ashok Pai Memorial College, and in association of IQASC. This program is organized to enlighten the young minds and promote the participation of students at all levels. When we conduct this program, a word of a famous person strikes to me. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of a lifelong attempt to acquire it. And in this section, we acquire the knowledge of foster care of children and role of social worker. So without any more delay, let's start today's program. I hereby welcome my dear friend Manjushri to welcome the gathering. Manjushri, over to you.
Sovin, I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible. You can carry on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Manjushri, student of Kapmi. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to welcome you all to this our international webinar. On behalf of Kapmi and Department of BSW, we are truly delighted with your presence. As such, I would like to welcome the President of our international webinar, Dr. Sandhya Kaveri Madam, Principal of Kapmi. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We are honored to welcome today's presenter, Natal Chrome, Placement Officer, Foster Care Unit, Department of Children and Families, Sweden. On behalf of the college and Department of BSW, we welcome you, Madam.
Thank you, dear.
In a bit, a very warm welcome to guest of honor, Dr. Rajini A. Pai, Madam, Director, Manasa Trust. We welcome you, Madam. I extend I extended my warm welcome to Faculty of Social Work Department, Kapmi. I welcome you all. In addition, I welcome the faculties from different colleges, universities, Ajjampura First Grade College, Shikaripura First Grade College, Ennarpura First Grade College, Sahyadri College. In addition, students and well-wishers. On behalf of college and Department of BSW, we welcome you all. To conclude, I wish you all great success in your pursuits. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjushri. Now, I'd like to call my friend Manju Prasad to introduce our special guest to all of us. Manju Prasad, over to you.
Hello, sir. I'm audible.
Yes, Manju Prasad.
Audible, sir.
Yes, you are. Carry on.
Huh. Good morning to all. Thank you to everyone who joined for the webinar session. Welcome to the most amazing webinars on foster care of children and role of social worker. I am profoundly delighted to take an opportunity to introduce the guest, Natalie Krumek. Natalie received her degree of Bachelor of Science in International and Intercultural Social Work at Mid Sweden University in Östersund, Sweden. She comes from Vajaxo, Sweden, but has the roots in the Czech Republic and has deep knowledge within both cultures. She has the past 5 years worked for the municipality of Vajaxo and held position as both financial aid officer at the Department of Financial Aid and senior employment services officer and counselor at the Department of Labor and Welfare Services. Her current position is placement officer at the foster care unit at the Department of Children and Families at Swedish Social Services. She has up to the point on gaining knowledge in the field of Swedish social work and is aiming to have a successful career in international social work. During her career, she has participated in numerous study states such as Lebanon and Jordan, focusing on the Syrian crisis. She also has experience with social work in India from work at Family Planning Association of India in Bellary, Karnataka. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manju Prasad. Now, let's start our today's main section. I'm handing over this platform to your friend Natalie Krum, and the platform is yours, ma'am.
Can I start? Good morning.
You can, ma'am. Good morning.
Is does everybody hear me? I just wanted to check first.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for the heartwarming welcome and the very nice presentation. I'm Natalie, and I'll be speaking about foster care in Sweden today and the role of the social worker. I'm very happy to join you. I can also see a couple of familiar names. It's very nice that you all joined to listen to me today. Um, I will be. I think I'll start with just a quick. Well, we've heard a presentation of who I am. I just wanted to tell you all that um, if you have any questions, you can ask them at the end of my presentation. And I'll show you. I have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'll open that now. Let's see. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Good.
Yes, ma'am, we
Okay,
can see that.
so I'll be talking about children in foster care and the role of the Swedish social worker today. And I'll start by speaking about the long history of social work that we have in Sweden, because we have a very well-established social work system that's been in place for many, many years. Um, I, it's almost like in the beginning of the 19th century, where where during the entire 19th century, Sweden really started to develop a kind of strong social work system, and it was largely based on the fact that um, uh, of the industrialization, where people started to move to cities and work in cities, and they had problems with, first and foremost, taking care of their elderly, because everybody was working, and also their children. So Sweden has a very long history of an established social work system. Um, what I wanted to also mention is that we're talking about children today, and I wanted to say that today, actually in Sweden, there are no orphanages at all. Like, if you imagine a traditional orphanage, that does not exist at all in Sweden. And I'll tell you later why that is, because of this foster care system that I'll be talking to you about in detail. What I wanted to say also was, I wanted to specifically talk about different social work problems, because in comparison to India, we have a different type of social problems. I mean, in India, I'm speaking from my experience, I think that um, there are social issues, but those issues are more specifically like basic issues, which could be, finances for living, housing, food. Like in Sweden, we have all these things, and that's not the main issue. The main social issue for a person that needs help in Sweden is not housing or food, because the country itself has such a high standard that is not specifically the problem. The social work problems that are most common are, well, you could, like, financial issues that you have. You can have, problems with money, so you apply for financial aid. Um, Drug abuse is also a huge problem, and then social services also could tell you that you're not an appropriate parent, and that's what I'm gonna speak about today. Other things that social workers work with in Sweden, and that's actually a huge part of the Swedish social services, is migration, and people that migrate to Sweden from countries that are or have been in war. For example, right now, a lot of people from Syria are joining Sweden. They have done for the last 10 years, while there's been a war in Syria. We also have a lot of people from Somalia, from Africa, that come to Sweden. Basically because Sweden has a reputation of being a safe country. So a lot of people, and it also has a reputation of not being like being a country that's pretty um, simple to establish yourself in, and being welcoming. So we work a lot with migrants, and trying to integrate them into Swedish society. And Sweden also has a long history of this, because migration to Sweden started a very long time ago, there are just different groups of people joining the Swedish society in different ways. Right now, we've come to a point where there's a lot of migrants, which means that I think that, or this is my personal opinion, that we have to change our integration system a little bit, but it has worked really well so far. So as I mentioned, social problems in Sweden are mostly financial support, um, integration into society, uh, drug abuse, and things like that. What I want to explain also is that unlike India, like from my experience, I believe that most social work in India is done by NGOs. In Sweden, it's not. NGOs are a very small part of the Swedish social work system, because the Swedish social work system is run by the government. So, and I'll come back into detail. And I just wanted to clarify also that the whole Swedish social work system, which I'll explain later, is financed by our taxes. So every individual in Sweden that has a job pays taxes, high taxes, quite high taxes. I pay 32% of my income to the government. And most people do, and the entire social work system and the financial aid and everything concerning money is financed by taxes, by the tax system, which is some people complain that that it's not a good system, but I would disagree. I think it's a really great way of financing the social work system, because if you need help, you could get the help that you want, and it's all based on taxes. So yeah, let's see, let's continue. Yes, I've been speaking about the social work system. And this is just an old photo that I found of a traditional orphanage. So now I'm going to talk about social services, which, because as I explained earlier, it's the social work system is run by taxes, and it's run by the government. And in every municipality, like Sweden is, I think Sweden has about 26 municipalities in total. And every municipality that that has a main city, every municipality has their own social services, and social services, the work that the social workers do is based on something called the Social Service Act. And the Social Service Act is an act, it's a group of laws in our Swedish law book. It's a basic law that every social worker that the entire social work system is based on the Social Service Act. Yeah. This, for example, Växjö kommun, that's the municipality where I've worked for the last 5 years. It's also my hometown. I've worked at Växjö municipality as you mentioned earlier, and every municipality has they have these social services, and underneath, I can show you here, are different types of this all belongs to the municipality and the social work system, but it's divided into different categories, and the main categories are elderly care, for elder people, disability care for disabled people, and family care for families that are in trouble. We're specifically going to talk about the family care part today, and um, these are all different things that you could work with. If you look at this picture, um, all of the people that work in these fields, elderly care, disability care, and family care, are all social workers. Um, you have to have a social work degree to work in these areas. Um, and I'm really happy that the system works that way, because that means that they're educated people that know what they're doing, and they're taking care of our most vulnerable members of society, I'm very happy for. Um, I have worked in the family care system, and there are different departments, as you can see. If you are a family that are if you're financially struggling, you could apply for financial aid. You just come to social services and you fill in an application, and then you meet a social worker and they help you with your finances. In Sweden, first of all, every child in Sweden gets a monthly amount. They get around 1,000 crowns a month, every child, that the parents get, that they can buy things for their child for. They get this from the day they're born until their 18th birthday. But even if let's say that you have 3 kids, and you get 3,000 crowns, you will not be able to survive on that money. You won't even be able to pay rent. It's just very, very basic necessities, and you have to work at the same time. Most parents give their 1,000 crowns to their child, to you know um, buy things that they want to buy, like toys or candy or something. um, so yeah, during like in this family care unit, there are different departments. So financial aid is one, family counseling is another one. um, I'll explain in detail later uh, how the family counseling works. Foster care, that's what we're going to talk about today, and the addiction counseling as well. And you can actually meet social workers from different departments if you have different issues, like you have a child that's in foster care, for example, and you have a drug addiction, let's say. You can join both departments and talk to social workers in both departments, and they can help you with different things, um, whatever you need. I know that in general, uh, research is very important in the work of the Swedish social worker. I know that we have in a group at work talked a lot about what's new in research and what we can apply to our work daily. I'll get into detail later on. Let's see. So this is the important part that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the process of a case. So let's say um, a child has an issue somehow. I have to specify that children that join foster care in Sweden are the really bad cases. The really vulnerable children that would have been placed in an orphanage, if you understand the context. Um, I mean, it's not, children do not get placed in foster care because their parents don't have money, or not a nice place to live, or so on and so on. I mean, these cases are cases where children have been beaten or abused, sexually abused. These cases are the ones that get all the way to the foster care, because um, there is a process in this which I'll explain. Um, the child, let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say that a child um, will get abused by their parents. Um, I mean, no, the social workers don't really know the child yet, but you know, um, they have to wait until somebody sends them a kind of message, or like we call it a notification of concern, to social services. So that, for example, could be a person like a teacher at school, or a neighbor, or somebody close to the child. We even have grandparents that notify social services that their grandchildren are not treated the way that they're supposed to. Um, but anyways, so a notification of concern is sent to social services. That's how any case or investigation starts, by the social services. So let's say a teacher calls social services and says, "Oh, this child that I have in my class, um, this child comes to school in very dirty clothes, and he's always hungry, and he's weak, and his parents always yell at him." Let's say the teacher tells this story to social services. What happens after that is that social services makes an inquiry, or opens a so-called investigation, um, and this paperwork takes, like, you kind of do you kind of investigate what's going on in the family, and you notify the parents, and you invite the parents over for a meeting based on the age and maturity of the child. Social services also speaks to the child. If it's a very, very small child, like let's say it's a 2-year-old, then it's very difficult to get that information from the child. So that means that you have to talk to other people around that have a relationship with the child to see if you can get as much information as possible. If you do that, you collect all of this information. Also, again, this is based on the Social Service Act, and it says specifically what law that you use to write this investigation. And when the social worker has written that investigation can take up to 4 months to write. It's a really huge pile of information. The social worker is supposed to get as much information as possible. to make a correct choice. And when the investigation is written and finished, it actually goes up to, like, it's presented to, I don't want to call it a jury, but a group of members of the social services that decides if the investigation is correctly done. And if it is correctly done, it goes to court. So it goes to a court, and the court says if it's the correct decision or not. And when that is done, an undertaking is taken place. That means first you write an investigation and inform everybody about what the undertaking is going to be. And then you invite the entire family and tell them what the undertaking is. An undertaking could be, for example, family therapy, or a child being placed in foster care, or that, for example, the parent has to be treated for their drug abuse, for example. So it's a document that says what, actually it's a document that says what the parent is supposed to do to be able to keep their child in their care. That's basically it. The social services basically presents a document that says, okay, you need to do this, this, and that. If you want to keep your child in your home, you need to prove that you're a fit parent. And it's not like you need to be a perfect, I'm not saying nobody needs to be a perfect parent, but we also use the expression a good enough parent. Because it's important to the state, to the government, that the children are treated well, because research has shown that, you know, if you treat a child well in their childhood, the person will have less of social problems when they're older, which means that benefits the state. It benefits the government to take care of children, to become grown adults, grown responsible adults, basically. That's why, and it's very important to the Swedish government that you know that we treat children right. It's a very big deal. So yeah, so that's kind of like the introduction to what happens when children are placed in foster care. That's the first part. And I mean, there's not always, if there's a notification of concern, that doesn't automatically mean that the child is going to be placed in foster care. You can get several notifications of concern and still not have a child in foster care. That's totally fine. It's based on the information that you get during this investigation. Sometimes the notification of concern is not even that serious, which means that sometimes there's not even, like, an investigation is not even started. But although if a parent gets an undertaking and they're presented with an undertaking, if they do not participate in this undertaking, they could be, the social services could take away their children. That could happen if you do not participate. So anyways, so that's the introductory part of it. And now we turn to the role of the social worker in when it comes to children, specifically children in foster care, because the first part, the when they invested, uh, uh, or like the undertakings and everything I talked about until this point, that's also, of course, social workers that investigated. Um, but there are different departments. So investigation is done in a certain department, in the first department of social workers. And the role of the social worker, specifically in foster care, is in the foster care unit. So when the child or the documents about the child have come to the foster care unit, the decision has already been made that they're going to be placed in foster care, or they already are placed in foster care. And I'm going to explain now that's what the role is. So as I said, the first part are also social workers, but specifically in foster care, the role is, there are certain type of things that you do as a social worker, and I'll get into that. Let's see. Here are the main working areas of the social worker. From my experience and what I know about social work studies in India, is that I think there are 6 types of social work, if I'm correct. It's casework, group work, community work, research, administration, and social action. In India, and you categorize it that way. I would say that we categorize it totally differently, which means that we're a little bit of everything, a little bit of the groups that I was just talking about. Most of all, you're a caseworker because you meet the child, right? You meet the child that was placed in foster care. You counsel the child. You talk to the child about their feelings, about how they're doing. All of that. There's a law that says that the minimum amount of home visits, when you visit the child in the home, the minimum amount is 2 times a year. So I have to go to the children's homes every 6 months minimum. Usually we go there every 3 months to visit the child in their home to see how they're doing. So what I wanted to say was that we're caseworkers. We're also group workers because we work with the family, with the biological parents, with the child, basically, yeah. And we don't do research, but we try to apply the research to what we're doing. We also, this is very important too, we also do a lot of administrative work. Like, we actually do all of it. So there's nobody else doing administrative work. We do all of it. We do counseling, administrative work. All the documentation is done by me. Yeah, that's I would say that it's about 50-50. That like if you see the time that I spent, 50% of the time I spent either with the child, biological parents, foster family, or at their school or something. Or at their free time activity. I can join if I want to, if I want to see how the child is doing. And 50% of the time I document. And there is a database, like a huge database in every municipality, and everything that I do is documented. If I get a phone call from somebody, if I have a meeting at school concerning the child, if I've been talking to the child or the biological parent or their foster family, everything is documented. I'm responsible for documenting everything that I do concerning this child. Um, so every child has an act or a document, and we document everything concerning this child. Um, so again, what is it that I specifically do? I meet the child and talk to the child about the situation, about how they're doing, what they like, what they don't like, and try to get. It's very, very important to bond with the child. We spend a lot of time basically just bonding with the child, because if you have a good relationship with your social worker, then maybe the child can actually tell their feelings, their real feelings, not the things that I want to hear, but the actual thing that they believe and they feel. So that means that I could go, I don't know, go to the park with the child. That's actually a part of my job, to bond with them, to go play games with them, go do normal things that children do, to bond with them and get a good relationship with them, because it's very, very important. Um, and that's one part. That's the biggest part of it all. I also have counseling with the biological parents. Just because a child is placed in foster care does not necessarily mean that they're taken away from their parents forever. Like, I mean, it's not, they live their everyday life with somebody else, but most of the time they actually meet their biological parents. Like, we plan this ahead of time and tell the child, and regular time is usually, I don't know, they see their biological parents for like a couple of hours in the afternoon, like twice a month maybe. Because research has shown that if you take away the child from their parent, from their biological parents, and because of the relationship, because it was bad from the beginning, and let's say that the biological parent has abused their child or hit their child, um, the child kind of pictures the parent uh, as as a monster, as somebody really bad. This parent hit me, and they're very bad people. This is what the child is going to grow up to think. And what social services wants is that they want some kind of, not a good relationship, but a neutral relationship with their parent, which means that the child uh, can meet their parent. Usually, they meet at social services with a counselor, and they try to have a nice time together. The parent tries to behave in a way that the child is not scared of them, and it doesn't mean that the child is going to have a really good relationship to the biological parent, of course not. But what happens is that the child, like, the biological parent is not a concern to the child anymore, because they see them sometime and they go, oh, okay, well, he or she is okay. But because they live with somebody else, their everyday focus and the everyday love and the everyday care is from their foster family, um, which means that they're okay with their parent, but they don't have a really good relationship with them. What we try to establish some kind of neutral ground, where we know that the parent has been not a very successful parent, but we also don't want to trouble the child with the picture of the parent being a terrible parent forever and cutting every bond. um like there, it's understandable that the child and the parent are not supposed to have a like a relationship, or like a good relationship when the child is a child. But let's say the child grows up and is now an adult and can take care of themselves and has their own family and stuff, and is raised properly. um, and then maybe they could have some kind of like neutral relationship with their parent, or at least not um, not make the parent such a villain. Or we all know that treating children bad is a really bad thing to do. But what we try to do is make the child feel comfortable, if you understand what I mean. So um, what I want to say also is, if we continue, um, we also meet the foster family. So what I said in the beginning was that in Sweden we don't have traditional orphanages anymore. We haven't had orphanages in Sweden for at least 60, 70 years. Which is very interesting because we're one of the few countries in the world that have that where the system actually works. So you have to keep in mind that in the entire country of Sweden, there are only 10 million people that live in Sweden in total. The orphanages, and every time a child needs to move away from their parents, they don't get moved to an orphanage, they get moved to a foster family. And if you want to become a foster family, you can apply at social services. And it's not that you do get an amount of money for having a child in your home from social services. I wouldn't call it, it's an income, and it's a small amount of money, but it's not compared to your salary. The point is that you're not supposed to do this to get uh, to get money instead of a salary. Foster care parents are parents that actually have regular jobs, regular other jobs. Most of them are not social workers. Most of them are regular people that have regular jobs in other fields. And most of them also have their own children. Very few of them do not. They just take in one or two children extra. They already have children. So let's say they have two children and they have another child that's placed in foster care in their home. That's the most regular type of family situation. There are also other family formats. There are older people that take care. Let's say that they're in their 60s. They're also foster families. They have grown children. Um, but again, these are people that have regular jobs, and the amount of money is not. Things that are very important in the social work job as a social worker in the foster care unit is to check the child's physical and psychological health, because we know that these children have gone through terrible things, and we need to make sure that they're they have good physical and psychological health. Normally, the physical health is okay in most cases, but psychological health sometimes gets really bad, which means that we can arrange um, counseling uh, with the you know child psychologist or whatever the child needs, basically. And I'm responsible to make the contacts, to arrange the meetings, um, with a psychiatrist or whatever the child needs, and it's my responsibility. uh, I wanted to add something back to the biological parents. I'm the one that's responsible of organizing the meeting between the biological parent and the child. Usually I attend that meeting. They're not alone. So that's also why the child needs to have a good relationship with the social worker, because when the child meets their biological parent, the social worker is there. Uh, but we try to make it as neutral as possible. We try to make it as nice as possible. Maybe we have a snack. Maybe we go to the park to play or something like that. Yeah. And the next part is the education of the child. What we know is that children that are placed in foster care have, in general, lower education because of difficulties, because of their physical or psychological health, because they've been abused. There are many reasons why education is difficult, or like attending school. All the children do attend school. They have to attend school because there is a law in Sweden that children have to go to school. Everyone does. Um, until it's first until ninth grade. They have to attend school. But what we know is that the children placed in foster care have difficulties attending school or getting good grades. So what we do is that we have special meetings. We contact the teacher, and we do follow-ups with the teacher and ask them, what can we do to make it easier for the child? What can we do, to make the child be more included in the school? You know, Usually, sometimes they have problems, making friends because maybe they get bullied or something like that. Um, so we have meetings also once every 6 months. Um, Sometimes the child attends, sometimes the child does not attend. We base a lot of the work on the age and the maturity of the child. We always use these terms together because you can be of any small age and still be very mature and still understand a lot of things. And some older children, maybe they're not mature enough to make these decisions. So we try to, what we do though is we try to involve the child in everything. We don't hide things from the child. We don't tell them, this does not concern you. You're not an adult. We try to be as clear as possible to the child what's going on, what's important, why are we doing this, just to make the child understand their own situation. They're entitled to know what's going on. It's very important. What we have added recently is the free time of the child. Research has shown that because the child that's put in foster care had a bad background, they're not doing really well in school, maybe they have some psychological issues that they attend meetings with the psychiatrist or something. What research has shown is if you look at the child's free time, after school, if they attend some kind of activity like for example, football or basketball, or I don't know, they play an instrument, or they take some kind of class in any way where other children attend, um, it it benefits the child. So what we try to do is we try to arrange some kind of activity in their free time, because what research has shown is that if a child um, does something in their free time, let's say that they play football, and they're good at it, um, it raises their whole situation. It raises their whole life quality, let's say, um, because they haven't done well at home, from the beginning. They're in a good home now, but it takes a long time to adjust, and they're a little behind in school, and maybe they're seeing a psychiatrist. But if they're good at their football game, it raises their quality of life, and they say to themselves, okay, but at least I'm good at football, which makes them motivated. It motivates them to keep going and to keep making good choices, and it's very effective. We've seen the effects of this, and it's very effective, and it's a very good part of this. What I want to add to the whole social work, uh, um, to the whole social work part, and what my part is and what I do, is that concerning all of these areas that I've been talking about now, there is a document that's written. Um, it's kind of, I would explain it as an agreement with the child, the biological parent, and the foster families, and the social worker. And we write this document um, that says specifically, it's like a plan. It says what responsibilities social worker has, what the child is entitled to, what responsibilities the foster family has, and maybe even a biological parent has some kind of responsibility. They have to do something for their child. They're still parents. They've taken away, they've been taken away, the child has been taken away from them. They're not entitled to raise their child anymore, but that doesn't mean that they're not parents and that they're not responsible. There's still a responsibility, and they still have to show that they want to meet their child, that they want to take care of their children. And there's a document written, and this document is basically the main document that says um, what the future holds, and what the next step is in this child's development. And it's an agreement that that is written and that is sent out to everyone in this group, and it's updated also every 6 months. um, yeah, that's the social work role. And maybe maybe it would be a good idea if I uh, gave you examples of cases of what it could look like. I've what should I say? Like me as a social worker, for example, I we as a group, the foster care unit, we're about 15 people, 15 social workers that work in the municipality. Um, so we're responsible for a lot of children. I think in our municipality, there's about 80 children that are placed in foster care right now. And the number, keeps going. And I'm responsible for around 15 children. So I have about 15 families that I do all of this work with, which means that there's a lot of work. I work all the time. There's a lot of work to do. But I'll give you an example of what what it could look like. I have, for example, one boy that was placed in foster care because because his parents were not, um, they investigated and they said that the parents were not fit as parents, and basically it was because his stepmother was not a fit parent, and his father is in prison. um, so the child got placed in foster care, and he lives with a different family now, and they're very nice to him, and they treat him very well, and he has some uh, psychological problems that they're dealing with, and it's very, very good. And what I've talked about with his father, who's in prison, I actually call the prison and talk to this father. um, and what I've observed is that the father does not really understand the needs of his own son. He doesn't understand that that the child needs to be taken to a psychiatrist, that the child needs medication of some sort. The father does not understand the need of his child. um, that's my observation. But what I had to do in this case, for example, one difficult part was I had to ask. This is a 10-year-old boy. I had to ask him, "Would you like to go live with your father again when he gets out of prison? Is that something that you want?" I asked the child that, which was very difficult because I wanted to get the truth. I wanted to get his opinion, the boy's opinion, the real opinion. I didn't want the boy to answer me the expectation of what he thought was the expectation. I wanted him to answer properly and to tell me, okay, like I wanted to tell him basically it's okay if you say that you don't want to live with your father. Most, like 99% of these children that are placed in foster care, they still want to be loyal to their parents, of course. um, they are loyal to their parents, and that's a very nice thing, and we want to keep that relationship as good as possible, as I told you before. But we also want the children to be honest because we want them to have a good future. And the boy eventually answered, no, I do not want to live with my father um, when he gets out of prison because he doesn't treat me right. That was what the boy responded. And that's what we want. We don't want to overdo it. We want the reality. We want to work with the reality and not overdo it and not have too high expectations of, and everything is not perfect. Foster families are not perfect. They're regular families that have regular lives, but it has to be good enough. And his biological father is not good enough. He's not a good enough parent for this specific child. Every investigation is made on every specific child. Just because the parent is not a fit parent doesn't mean that all of their children are taken away from them. It could be one, it could be two. It's based on specific information. Uh, it's based on, for example, how old the child is, if they can take care of themselves or not, if it's a small child. It depends. I also have, I'll give you another example. These are actually siblings. We have three small siblings. The oldest one is 4 years old, and the other ones are even younger, and they were placed in two different homes because we had problems finding one home that could take three children. That was very difficult, because most families already have children, and they would have to go from 1 to 4, or even more. um, um, and their parents are very young. They're about 22 years old for in Swedish terms. They're about 22 years old, and they both have addiction problems. They're both addicted to drugs, their parents. Um, so their children have been taken away from them um, and put in foster care. But they do meet their children. They go to the park with them. They enjoy time with them. Um, but they're not supposed to take drugs when they see their children. Um, and there's also, like, in these cases, like, for example, in this case with the parents that are drug addicted, we try to look uh, we try to make it as positive as possible. We're not negative towards the parents. I keep telling their parents, you're so young, there's a lot of time, you can still get treated for your addiction. And if you get treated for your addiction, maybe in a couple of years, your children can come back and live with you again. That's totally normal. That's not a problem. They just have to prove certain points. They have to prove that, for example, they're gonna do drug tests for a year. I need to see results for a year, and then I can say, okay, so let's start, to work with maybe the children moving back to your house again. That's totally possible. That's not a problem. It depends. It totally depends on the family, really. Um, so yeah, I have put a couple. The thing is that it was very difficult for me to find any pictures of my work because it's all you know um, there's a lot of security concerning social services. We don't speak to other people about our cases. We're very strict with with the information that we get. Everything is locked. Other people that are not part of the social work system are not allowed to get information about somebody. Um, but anyways, this is the first picture from the left is our main building in the municipality. Yeah, you see the glass windows there. The second picture is from a specific house where the biological parent meets their child. So we have a specific building where they can go meet their children, play with them, and have fun with them. So this is what it looks like afterwards when we have to pick up the toys. Sometimes when they're older, the third picture, the middle picture, is sometimes when the kids are teenagers, when they're 14, 15 years old. Sometimes I pick them up from school, and just we drive around and, I don't know, buy ice cream or something and just talk for a bit, uh, partly to bond, partly to talk about how they're doing. Um, it depends on the age of the child. Picture number 4 is me at the office. As we all know, we have um, COVID epidemic all over the world, so we had to adjust a lot to the COVID situation as well. Um, and the last picture is my office. So it's nice to see kind of how it looks like. And I think that's a good start. I also wanted to quickly talk about opportunities for social workers in Sweden. As I mentioned earlier, social services is a very big part of the government. Um, There's a lot of social workers that work within the government, but you don't always have to work for the government if you are a social worker. There are many other possibilities as a social worker. Um, you could work. I have, for example, I have a friend called Shivar. He was with me when I was visiting India. For example, he works in a home. It's not an orphanage, but it's a home where boys live that come to Sweden, that migrated to Sweden, that are not 18 years old yet. So usually they're between 16 and 18 years old, and according to the Swedish government, they're not. They're not seen as adults yet because they're not 18 years old, which means that they have different rights. And they live in these homes and they're taken care of by, for example, Shivar, and they're integrated into Swedish society so that when they're 18 years old, they can move out and get their own apartments or homes or wherever they want to live. Um, what else can I tell you? There are different types of social work jobs. You can work within elderly care or disability care. There are a few NGOs. Um, I have had I've I have had work experience from, for example, the Red Cross, but they also work a lot with integration. And because there's different types of social problems, like NGOs do not work with food or vaccines or things like that. They work with integration of people into society, teaching people Swedish, for example, language barriers, that kind of stuff. um, there's also a lot of very good social work uh, colleges and universities in Sweden that you could join. And I think that we'll end this session with a Q&A. So let's see if I can do this, and then I'll get back to you again. Um, let's see if I can do this. So can you see me again now?
Yeah, ma'am, we
Yeah.
can see you.
Okay. So let's do a quick Q&A. Just ask anything you want. If there's something that you didn't understand, or if you're concerned about anything else that you might want to know about my work, or social work in Sweden, or foster care, or anything.
Uh, Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah. So my question was, you told that the foster parents generally have their own biological children.
Yeah.
So how do these children react to the new members when the parents bring in new children to their family?
That's a very good question. Thank you. Like in the meeting, when the child is placed, when they meet their foster family for the first time, they have a short meeting at the social services, and usually the children join. The biological children join at the meeting from the beginning, because we know that if everybody's has the same information and everybody gets nothing is hidden from anybody, then that's better. And sometimes it even happens, they join in the first meeting, then maybe the child um, joins, like they go visit them in their home for one time. It's a little bit of a process. It takes a couple of weeks before the child moves to the foster family, because once they have a meeting at social services, then they have a home visit. Then the child, maybe they have a sleepover, that they sleep in the home for a couple of nights, and try to get to know the family. And the children, the biological children are involved in this process as well. And sometimes even afterwards, the children do have issues because sometimes the foster child um, needs a little more attention than the other children do because it's more difficult. And we try to incorporate work with the biological children as well. If they need anything, help or anything, we try to incorporate that as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah.
My question is, ma'am, you have been there in 3 months in India for field work. Can you tell your experience, ma'am?
Can I tell you about my experience? I had a wonderful experience in India. I was actually there for longer. I think I was there for 6 months actually. It wasn't a whole semester. It was during my bachelor degree, and we had a practice placement, and I went to Bellary, um, and I had a practice placement um, at what was it called?
Family Planning Association.
Family Planning Association. And it was a really great experience because, um, first of all, the Indian culture is very different from the Swedish one. And I learned many, many things, deep, deep things about society and different cultures. And I honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I carry around a lot of things that I've learned in India in my heart. Really, I do, because I learned a couple of things from the Indian culture, um, that 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 are very useful for my life as well, because my life is so different. I carried on a couple of things. I carried them with me, really. I have friendships from that time that I'll have forever. I had a very nice experience in India, and I'm very grateful for my friends that I've met in India. Um, you know, uh, um, Manjunath Swami, sir. I think we're going to be friends for the rest of our lives. Also, I know Mr. Kanni is here listening, and we always made fun of that Mr. Kanni and his family, they're my Indian family. They're my Indian parents. Mr. Kanni is my Indian father because he took care of me when I was in India, and I will be forever grateful for that. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah. Next
Is
question.
there any registration for a social worker in Sweden for their work?
Like what kind of registration are you asking about? Like some kind of database system where social workers are registered, or?
Just I will add that one, okay. What happened here in India, we don't have any registration for professional course, especially in social work. But in Sweden, there is any government registration for working other government departments or some other NGO. We supposed to register or not? Just we are asking that.
Okay. We don't have. There's not a register, but when you get employed, when you want to apply for a job, your employer could check with the university that you studied, if you got your degree there. You could check if it's accurate, and you can check in your personal letter if you have worked anywhere else. The employer calls that place and checks, okay, this person actually worked there for this amount of years, or whatever. They do a background check on you before you get employed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Question, like if the
who takes care of the child's expense, the foster care family or the biological family, ma'am?
The expenses, the financial expenses, that's actually social services. The social services gives an amount of money to the foster family uh, that they are supposed to spend on the child. Usually that's not like 100% coverage. Maybe it's like 80% coverage of the finances, and the 20% is actually financed by the foster family.
So, ma'am, till what time the foster family take care of the child?
Until they're 18, or if when they are 18 and they're still in high school, they can live in a foster family up to the age of 21, if they still go to high school, but usually 18.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Uh, Here one question is there. Here one question. If I come to Sweden with a no social work degree or background, what are the future prospects as a social worker?
I can't hear you very good. You have to speak
Now
clearly
is it?
or higher.
Yeah, okay. If I come to Sweden with a no social work degree or background, what are the future prospects as a social worker?
If you come to Sweden with a social work degree, I think it's a very good start to have a social work degree. I'm not. The problem is that even though, example, for people from India speak English, really well because it's the language you speak in, and that's a very positive thing because English is very important. But I think that the language barrier is the biggest problem, not the actual information that you have or the degree. I think that's totally fine. But if you want to have a good career in Sweden in social work, you actually have to learn how to speak Swedish properly. I think that's the biggest barrier.
Yeah, thank you.
So, any other questions, or are you satisfied?
Ma'am, one more.
Hmm? Sure.
Cases you in a week or in a year? How many cases of foster family children's?
How many cases? Like I have, or in general?
Yeah,
I have.
in general, ma'am. In total,
In Sweden. I've. I have. I think it's the amount of children that are placed in foster care in Sweden uh, is it's very low because social services does everything to prevent this, of course. Like, you help the children before they're placed in foster care. So I read somewhere that it's only 1% of all children that live in Sweden that are placed in foster care, which is a really good number because you try to work as hard as possible on not putting children in foster care, because you try to help the family first, and then if you don't succeed, then you put the child in foster care. Or if there's a really extreme situation where somebody actually, the police can see that the children are beaten or something like that. But I would say 1%. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, like I heard some cases like children threatens their parents by calling social services and all. So is the other issues you face also?
There are certain. I think that's a hard question, but sometimes that that does happen, but I think that's a sign of course, it's not good to threaten your parents, obviously, but it's a good sign that children know their rights. The children actually in Sweden know that they have the right to have a good life, and that's very positive. Um, but otherwise, of course, it's not good that the children threaten their parents. But it could happen, and that gets investigated, and it gets investigated properly. So, I mean, if the child has threatened the parent, we know about it basically because we figured it out, and we can see that the parent that there's nothing wrong with the parent, and then the investigation is just closed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Madam, just one question. Can you hear me? This is Dr. Rajini Pai.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know, in case the child has been placed in foster care at the age of, say, 8 or 9, and the family which has, after all your investigation, and you find that this is the right family for the child, and within a year or two, some untoward incidents happen in the family, like say in the COVID case, like in India now, we find that one parent may have died, the one who's taking the responsibility, or there have been some physical ailments which has come in the way of their handling the whole family finances and situations. Then will the child go to another set of foster parents, or will come back to the institute, or go back to the biological parents?
That could happen. As you say, their foster parents, foster families are not perfect. They also have issues, so things can happen. In that case, when we see that there is a problem or issue with that family, we check first how the parents are doing. And let's say that the parents are doing great and they have rehabilitated. Let's say that they're not drug addicts anymore, or that they've somehow changed their situation for the better, then it could be considered that the child would go back to their biological parents. Otherwise, they will get placed in a different foster family.
This sort of change of foster parentage at a very young age on 2-3 occasions. Say one child will be in for 1 year with one foster parent and then another year with another foster parent before he or she goes back to his own parents. Will that affect the child in a great way because he's used to one type of family, used to one type of principles and life, and then
yeah, what we try to do is we try to move the child as less as possible. Like the less amount of times the child has to move, the better. It's we always try to only move once. We try to do that, but sometimes it happens that the child has to move several times, and it's not good. We know that this is not good, but we try to do a minimum amount of moves.
And the original biological parents, if they are totally dysfunctional, is then the child sent for adoption to another family?
They could. If as you say, if the biological parent is not fit at all and will never be, what happens is the foster family could adopt the child. They could apply after 3 years if they have reasons. If they know that the biological parent is unfit and will be unfit, then they can apply after 3 years, and then social services opens the case, investigates it, and says either you can adopt the child or it will stay in foster care. If there is a chance that the parents will get better, the child will be a foster child. But if the parent is not fit and will not be fit, then you could adopt the child.
Is there a networking of these foster children wherein each one meets one another at one point of time because their problems are totally different from those children who are being brought up by biological parents? Then do you think that would help? Like we have one such organization in Bangalore where those children meet one another before being adopted by others or getting back into their family, and they've kept in touch with one another, and their problems they are able to solve on a different plane rather than those children who are in biologically families with their own problems.
Of course, of course. We have once a year we have an event called the Family Foster Care Unit Day that we have once a year, and where the children get to meet. They are allowed to have contact with each other. The foster families are allowed to have contact with each other. Some foster families know each other. From example, they can have mutual counseling sessions, like group sessions. Sometimes the foster families wants to have that, and they're allowed to have that, and they get to know each other through this, and they can spend their free time together, and the children can bond. There are a few NGOs in Sweden that have this function. So the children can communicate with each other and do events together. They have, I even think that they have some kind of summer camp, but that's actually an NGO that does that. We're not involved in that. We're involved in the official social work, administrative part, but their free time they can spend together, and that's an NGO that does that actually. Yeah.
You feel that concept is good enough to be adopted even in India now? We should do it and see to it that, because we're having many such children who are now going for either a foster parentage and for adoptions as well.
Yeah. I think it's a really good idea, and for the security of the child and for the mental health of the child, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was a very nice session.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now let's on.
I would like to call upon guest of honor, Dr. Rajini Pai,
Director of Manasa Trust, to speak a few words. Ma'am?
Just to repeat, Sunil?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, over to you, ma'am. Rajini, ma'am.
Okay. Madam Natalie, this was a very insightful session, and I'm very thankful to you for all the different topics that you could touch on, and your experience in India, which you could mix together with your experiences there, as we consider Sweden as one of the most leading nations, and naturally our economical background there and here being far different, and the way of parenting also being very different. I think most of those who have attended today have got an insight into what Sweden can offer to the children and to the parents as well. If we have more such sessions wherein you can advise us as to whether we can train parents as well to be good enough in our own cultural setup, I think every child's future will be a real rainbow for them to go ahead in life. And I hope next time when you come to India, we'll have the opportunity to meet you again. So thank you very much again for all that you have been able to convey to our students and to us all today. Thank you again, Manjuna Swami, for giving me this opportunity to talk today.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to call upon Manjuna Swami, sir, to speak a few words.
Yeah, just two or more names I have to mention, because here in our platform we have Kapmi sir. He is now working in a Akshara Foundation, and Natali already told about Kapmi sir. He is only one person who brought you as a student here in India, but district. So here, Kapmi sir, thank you so much for being with us. And here we have Vijay Lakshmi madam. Now she is working in a family planning association as a branch manager in Ballari, and she is guide for the Natali. I think she is also with us for this. And Manasa Gauri ma'am, she is associate professor in Ballari University, Vijayanagara Sri Krishna Devaraya University, and Dr. Lokesh sir, professor in Damodar University with us, and Rajendra Chani sir, our MCCS director, and Tumkur University, so many students and faculties have participated here. And personally, I would like to thank all the members to make this session wonderful. And personally, I would like to thank Natali for accepting our invitation and speaking about the foster care service. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have come to our last and the final of our session. Let's conclude this section by giving vote of thanks by my dear friend Kunal. Kunal, over to you.
Savin, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the higher appreciation is not to utter words but to live in them. I would thank Dr. Sandhya Kaveri ma'am, Principal, Kadil Ashok Pai Memorial College for presidential remark. I like to express a sincere thanks to Natalie Chrome ma'am for giving an excellent coverage on foster care of children and role of social work. I also wish to express gratitude to our guest of honor, Dr. Rajini Pai ma'am, Director of Manasa Trust, Shumoga. I sincerely thank all of the faculties of Katil Ashok Pai Memorial Institute, Shumaga for providing an encouragement. I thank all my friends. Finally, at last but not the least, I express my sincere gratitude for the both student and faculties of Sayadri College, Shumaga, First Grade College, Ennarpura, First Grade College, Shikaripura, and First Grade College, Ajampura, and various state, national, and international university faculties and students who all participated in the webinar. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Kunal. I wholeheartedly thank you each and everyone for making this session a grand success. And everyone will be provided e-certificate after filling a feedback which is given link in a chat box. Please fill it. And thank you everyone. And please kindly leave the section. Thank you.